kissing him and bringing him in. And before he could finish saying, Lord, I've sinned against the heavens and against you. Make me as one of your servants. His father has already embraced him back as his dead son that came back to life. And they make a festival. The older son hears the festivities and the joy and wonders from the outside what this party might be. He doesn't want to go in, despite the servants telling him to. So the father comes out begging him to come back, so that because they're celebrating the dead son that is now alive. But the son feels broken and tells him, basically a made-up lie, that your son, this one that you're celebrating, has spent his money on prostitutes and so on. And you have never given me anything, not even a small goat to celebrate. And the father responds and tells him, everything that I have, you've been here all along with me. Everything that I have is yours.
Amazing. Did you tell her that we're doing that? So did she miss any? Do you guys think that? I think you probably would hear me. If you can't tell me. So did she miss any of the story? All right, excellent. The ring and the packet of what was that?
There were gifts for the son.
No. Actually, a funny story as Sunday school teacher is asking Sunday school kid. Was there anyone unhappy that the younger son came back and a child of theirs? Yeah, because the fatted cat, because it was killed. It's interesting, actually. There are so many things in the story that we actually miss. If we are to create a scene in act, where is that story told? Where was that story told? What is the location? So, if we will actually create a scene or create an act, we have to come up with the actors, actress, if there's any, the location, the time, the scenario. So let's try to make it that way. Who was there? Jesus was telling the story to whom? The scribe and the Pharisees. How did you know that? At the beginning of chapter 15. Who else was there? The sinners. Do you guys remember all these stuff? Not much, probably, but it is there. Where? Where is the location? Which city? Or which area? But Jesus was going where? It wasn't Jerusalem yet. He was actually on his way to Jerusalem. It was in one of the cities of Galilee. The only city that was mentioned nearby was Sidon. And that was mentioned actually maybe 4 or 5 chapters before then. So to find out the location, you had to go back and dig that far. Why? Why did he tell that story? Does anyone know? Why did Jesus tell the story of the prodigal son? What made him come up with that parable? You know.
To display like God's grace and forgiveness even in sin.
Sure. But why? Why did he have to come up with that story? What's your name?
Oh, Nardine.
Nardine. And what's your name? Sorry.
Oh, Irene.
Irene. Right.
Okay, so I think in a way it can be like sort of inspiration to us because we all make mistakes and it's very easy to like give up and to like give in to say like, oh, I've done this, like I'm gone, like there's no more chances for me. So in a way, it's something that we can like all relate to through telling that parable. Everyone, like they know that they have that chance to come back always.
Excellent. What else? What else do you think actually Jesus told the story? Anyone? Mina. Yeah.
I think that Jesus told the story because he was trying to explain to the Pharisees and to the scribes that the world doesn't revolve around you, essentially. And then there's other people that are also invited to the kingdom of heaven. And I think the main thing was, he was trying to dig that into them, that there's others that matter,
So-
not just you.
Really what you're trying to say here is actually Jesus was not really telling the story about the young son who's actually didn't need to speak about that son who's actually doing a big sin, or that son that's far away. He was speaking to the Pharisees about them in the form of
the older son.
the older son. So technically that story's name should not be the prodigal son. It should be the story of maybe the two sons. But mainly it was told because they were unhappy that Jesus is speaking to the sinners and the tax collectors. They were unhappy that Jesus is ignoring them and their authority. And they were asking him, actually, if you go back to the beginning of chapter 15, and that's what we're going to do now, you will know how did it start. And there are two stories, actually, Jesus told before he told the story of the prodigal son, and that is the lost sheep and the lost coin. All right, we'll come back to it. So can we, who can read for us? Can we bring it in the scripture? حد ما اتكلمش بقى. Do you guys have your Bible? Or do you want to read from here? You can use your phone if you want. Luke 15. Who's ready? Right, go ahead.
This is New King James Version, is that okay?
That's perfect. Actually, yeah, we can read from here. Perfect.
Then all the tax collectors and the sinners drew near to him to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes complained, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he spoke this parable to them, saying, "What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost.' I say to you that likewise there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 just persons who need no repentance." Do you want me to read the coin too?
Yeah, keep going.
Or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she has found it, she calls her friends and neighbors to her, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I lost." Likewise, I say to you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Then he said, "A certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me a portion of goods that falls to me.' So he divided them to his livelihood. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed the swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. But he came to himself. He said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and spare?' How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. And when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servant, Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat it and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. Now his older son was in the field, and he came and drew near the house. He heard music and dancing, so he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, Your brother had come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I have never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, you kill the fatted calf for him? And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was right that we should make merry and glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found.
So when you go back to actually the first verse of the chapter, you will see that who is the audience, who is actually the reason for the story to be told. Then all the tax collectors and the sinners drew near him to hear him. Why were tax collectors bad people?
Because, most of them were Jewish, and they were just putting more of their people into poverty. It's kind of like blood money.
Yeah, they were looked at as very evil. In a way, they are just basically helping the Roman Empire to kind of like steal their money. Imagine if one day here in America we go in war with another country, and this country beat us, and they actually kind of like invade us, and then they put some commercials on TV saying, we need some people to work for us to actually collect taxes for us. And then I raise my hand and I go, and then I come to you telling you, give me your taxes. You owe the other country these. How much you will love me? Oh my God, you will hate me. I will hate me if I'm me. That's how the tax collectors were looked at, especially from the perspectives of the Pharisees. They were tough people. Those Pharisees are tougher than the current Jew Orthodox. The Jew Orthodox are very difficult to deal with. You have no idea. And the sinners, just a broad word, didn't specify. And those sinners can be, you name it. People who steal stuff, people who say bad words, sexual sins, many things. Actually, those sinners can be us. And it probably can also be those Pharisees, but they were righteous in their own eyes, so they didn't see that. And the Pharisees and the scribes complained, saying, this man receives sinners and eats with them. So he spoke this parable to them. هم كانوا فاكرين نفسهم, we are the best. So why does he sit with them? If he is truly from God, he wouldn't do that. And then he gave the two examples, the lost coin and the lost sheep, and then he actually ended it by this amazing, really told story of what I call the two lost sons. One was lost far away, and another one was lost just nearby. He was lost but within. And a lot of times we actually read the story about the lost son who actually took his money and actually traveled far away. And we forget that there was another one who was lost, but he actually stayed. And if we will take the parable to another level and say, yeah, the young son took his money and all his potentials, and he actually traveled far away from the church. And the older son remained in the church. So which son of them is me? I think I am the one in the church because I'm still here. I didn't really leave the church. So it's always good to go back and examine yourself. Yes, I am in the church, but I am really, am I found or am I lost? Because when you examine yourself, you may find that we are lost behind so many other things that we forget the real purpose. And that we will find actually through the rest of the story. I can actually go over and start analyzing, but I want you to help me. So if I go back and say, what did you guys learn from that story? What would you say? Let's come up with some stuff that we learned from it. فكر في حاجة. I'll come back to you.
So this is my first time like reading this story. So I think what I got from it was, I'm gonna say that the Father is God, right?
Sure.
Okay. And the son who went out and went sinning and all that stuff, he still was welcomed back.
Excellent.
So I guess that's the same with how God sees someone. He doesn't care if you sin, but as long as you come back, I guess the point is that, like, I guess don't do it again.
That's amazing. Amazing. What's your name?
Elijah.
Elia. What's your name? Anastasia. Anastasia said something. Just go ahead.
So I realized something when we were reading this today that I haven't realized practically all my life when I was hearing this parable, is that when the son came back, it said that he still had a long way to go, but God came running to him. And I feel like it's awesome that God will see that we're struggling and still far away, but if he sees that we have the intention to come back and be with him, that he will come running to us and, you know, like rejoice in just the intention of us coming back.
That's amazing. What else did we learn? Until you think of something. All right, go ahead.
Mine was kind of similar. I just, it came to mind how when the prodigal son had lived like a bad life and wasted the money and lived a life of sin, like when he came back, he was probably not expecting his father to react in the way he did. Like he was probably coming back with guilt, and he was probably coming back with like shame, or he just wasn't expecting his father to like have that, you know, a whole feast for him and just be so loving towards him. So God just surprises us that way with his love.
Until you come up with something else, does any one of you have something? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a controversial opinion that I've been struggling with for quite some time. I feel a bit mad for the older son. Every day he had to go and work for his father's field, and yet he never really felt his father's love. His father's gaze from the moment that his younger son took the money was on the outside, waiting for his son to return, and never on appreciating the older son. If I were the older son, I would resent my father as well, and I would resent my younger brother.
What do you guys think?
Mary.
So Mary is saying here, actually, she feels bad for the... I like it more without this. She feels bad for the older son because he didn't feel the love of the father. He didn't feel loved. He felt like kind of was taken for granted, right? He didn't really get anything he deserves, and he thought that he deserves a lot more from the father. Eli, what do you want to say?
The dad ended up telling him after he got, oh, thanks. Dang, this one's louder. the dad told him, he said, "Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours." So since he never left, he never needed that special fatty cow, right? So like it was always just there for him because he had never left.
It was never given to him?
But it's still his. It says, "All that I have is yours."
Yeah, that's technically his share from the inheritance anyways, but it was never given to him.
Okay, what do you guys think?
Okay, so I feel like in the beginning of the parable, like both the sons were in the same spot, but like the younger son actually acted on his like thoughts, and instead of like staying like the older son and being obedient and helping him in the field, he actually went out and was like see ya, like I got what I wanted now, and the older son just like stayed and. Yeah, I just feel like they started in the same spot, but somebody acted on it, like the younger one, and that, I feel like the younger son had like the revelation, like, oh, like my father actually loves me, and I appreciate where I'm at, like when he went back, but the older son kind of just stayed in the same spot, so he didn't see that type of change, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. But, so who agrees with Mary that the older son didn't really get his rights? Few here actually agree that the older son didn't get his right. And who disagree with them? So-and-so, like what do you think? What's your name first? Carlos, what do you think?
I'm not going to answer because I don't know a lot.
It's okay, just tell us what you think.
I don't know. That's the problem.
It's just so-and-so. 50-50. George. I think, Mina, go ahead.
Maybe they don't exactly understand the difference. So the difference is one person sinned, screwed up royally, asked for an inheritance, and he went off. And he got his inheritance and went and spent it all. Like it was all spent. It was gone. Like all of his money is gone. He came back and his dad opened up his arms and said, "Welcome." But the older brother, who supposedly lived in the house all of his entire life, never asked for his inheritance, right? At least we don't know. He never asked for his inheritance. But somehow, some way, he carries this sort of resentment towards his dad. And he's saying like, "Dad, like, how come you didn't do this for me? Like, my little brother gets all of this, but you didn't give this for me." So like, Dr. Gears is asking, who is in the right? Like, if you were to solve this problem, these two brothers come up and show up at your door saying, "Solve this problem." Who is right? The older brother or the dad for accepting the younger brother? I have my thoughts, but
Go ahead.
So my thoughts are that the older brother it's not really about the dad. I don't think that the dad fell short of loving either sons in any way, shape, or form. I think what it was more about is that the older son was really contemptuous. That's the word I'm looking for. And when saying contemptuous, I mean like he had this sense of superiority. Like, I deserve more. I am better. I am bigger. I am older. I am wiser. So therefore, I deserve to be treated in a much more of a highly way than my little brother who went and screwed up. So I felt like that's like the big thing. It wasn't that the dad loved this one less than this one. Well, in my head, actually, the little brother was away. He went away. He was out. And it was the older brother in the house. So really the entire relationship was just dad and this older brother, right?
If your heart is over there and it's not here, then it's not a relationship.
But one second. So if the little brother is completely out of the picture and all that's left is the father and the older brother, so really that relationship would have been strengthened, if anything, right? Like the father realizes, oh my God, I don't have any other sons except for this one, so let me give attention to this. And plus he tells him, he's very clear that all that I have is yours. it's almost like not just your inheritance. No. Everything I have is yours. And I think what the older son, he like failed to realize, he failed to recognize that there's something greater here than being thrown a party. Because it seems like that's what really caught him, is that the party that was thrown for his little brother to honor his return, to him was an offense. It's like I deserve better. And that's what I feel like the big kind of like light bulb in the story is that idea that those of us who are in the church, which sometimes we turn into a little brother, but for now, we might be the older brother, that we might get that sense of contemptuousness or like this idea of superiority, and that really like damages us. But go ahead and respond. I feel like you might feel differently.
I can look at it from the material perspective of, yes, he wanted the party. I'm 100% on you on that. But if the father's heart is with the younger son, looking at him and yearning for his younger son to return, it's not really with the older son. I'm more looking so at it from the emotional perspective. That resentment wouldn't have been built if there has been enough love.
You actually came in, like, really, this is the root of the story. It's really about the perception of the older son about what's happening. He didn't love the father. He didn't love his brother, and he didn't feel the love from the father, despite the fact he had everything. So let's take it from the material perspectives first, and then we'll actually go to the spiritual part. Now, when the younger son came to the father and he asked him to actually give me my portion, did he mean give me half of your wealth? No, he didn't mean that. Let's go to Deuteronomy 21:14. If someone is faster to go, that would be great. So understanding the traditions of the Jewish culture at the time actually will make it a difference. That's 21. Uh, 17. 17. So, but he shall acknowledge the son of the unloved wife as the firstborn and give him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength and the right of his firstborn. So technically, what is known at that time, if a father had two sons and he is to divide his inheritance between them, the older son takes two portions, and the rest of the inheritance will be divided. So technically, the inheritance now will be divided over third will go to the younger son, and 2/3 will go to the older son. Again, I'm just basically speaking about the material part yet. I didn't go to the meaning of it. So, and how will the division will be done? Like, I have two sons, and I decided to actually divide my inheritance to both of them. The younger one will actually only get third, and then the older one will get 2/3, and what will I get? Nothing? So I would be thrown away on the streets? No. At that culture back then, usually to ask for your inheritance while your father is alive is shame on you. And definitely the father has a right to tell you, you don't deserve anything, I'm not going to give you anything, and then he can be smacked on his face or his mouth. And not just that, but this person, because he will be shamed so much, he can be considered dead. And for that reason, the father at the end of the parable told him, your brother was dead, because culturally he actually is considered dead. The son can take his part of the estate and actually sell it. Like, he have a house, he will actually sell his portion of the house. And who will buy it? someone that's trying to invest. Will he kick the father out? No, the father will not be kicked out, and the new buyer will not get the house until the father dies. That's a culture. But definitely from the story, it seems like he was very rich, so they didn't need to actually leave the house or the estate they had. The older son, now by right, he have everything left, because the younger just took his part, and whatever is left really materially belongs to the older son. But does he take it now? He doesn't have the right to take it now, unless he asks, and then the father can decide if he can give it or not. But it seems like he didn't ask for it, because he felt like, I am the better son. Which one of them felt loved? The younger son took his money and traveled far away. But when he found out what it means to actually leave the father and lose all his money and start actually wishing to eat the food that the swine will eat. What is it? The pods. Pods. Like what is that kind of food? We don't really know exactly, but some people will say it's actually the certain kind of fruit that comes from a tree. Not artichokes. Some of you maybe actually know it if you, in Arabic, it's called kharnoub. It has a shape of like a long, very dry fruit. Definitely when it's on the tree, it's not dry, it's green. When it dries, it has like a very rough surface to it and rough shell. It has some sweetness, and inside there are seeds that's not edible. Similar to tamarind, but it's not, but very similar to it. لما تروحوا مصر روحوا عند مقلة هتلاقوا خرنوب. Very hard to eat. But this tree is very common in that area, in Israel and Palestine and some parts of Europe. And he wished to actually eat that. And the Bible say, and no one gave him anything. Actually, I didn't know when I read this Bible, whom does he refer to by anyone? Anyone of the people or anyone of the swine? I don't know. But he didn't get it. That's how bad he was in shape. When he realized that he can actually run to the fathers and ask for his forgiveness, he didn't hesitate to actually do it, because what will he lose? His father will kick him out. Maybe. He will go back to where he came from. Nothing is lost. But when he went back, he felt how much the father loved him. Yet the older son didn't feel it. Go back to the beginning of the chapter. What happened? It's the beginning, the reason for the story. Jesus is sitting with the Pharisees and tax collectors. And the sinners and the tax collectors. And here comes the scribes and the Pharisees telling him, what are you doing? We deserve to actually get that teaching, not them. If you are really righteous, you don't really sit with them. Just exactly what the older son did. He didn't feel the love of the father, despite the fact he had everything. And that's why in the beginning when I was saying, it's a tale of two lost sons. One was lost far away, and the other one is lost within. And that can come back to actually say, I live here in the church in Saint Justina. No, I actually live in the Coptic church. But do I enjoy the richness of the church? Do I feel the love of the church? Do I love that church? It makes a difference. So I can actually be here. And at the same time, I'm far, far, far away from this church. I'm far, far, far away from God. Luke 19:10. This is the summary of the story. For the Son of Man has come to seek and save that which was lost. That's what I'm here for. I am not here for the Pharisees or the Sadducees and or the scribe who feel or think they are righteous and they don't need me. I'm here for those people who were lost and feel they are lost and they need me. The older son didn't feel like he needed anything. Yet he didn't get anything. That's why he felt bad. And the father told him, everything is yours. Almost as if he's telling him, I live in your inheritance. I live with your money. It's not mine anymore, it's yours. I give it to you. Yet he didn't feel that. He felt like it's unfair. You know what? At the end, you can actually feel it. He didn't really love his son either, his brother either. Because if he did, he would run towards him. He will hug him and kiss him like the father did. And that's the difference. He was very jealous. If you read the Old Testament, there are so many books in there that actually describes how God really was longing for the Gentiles, for the non-Jew, for the other nation. In multiple of those actually books, especially the young or the small prophets. Very interesting stories there. Anyway, we'll go back to the lessons from the parable. Anything else? If you look for two verbs that the son did, kind of like the son started the story, the young son started the story by asking the father, right? He told him, give me my rights, give me my inheritance. And then the story ended by he going back to the father, telling him, forgive me, because I have sinned. Again, I started by asking to take, now give me. Yet, what did I take? A lot, but I lost it all. Yet when he, at the end, actually asked to be forgiven, he was given more than he deserves. So how about we switch it? Oh, if I asked God to forgive me first, he will give me everything. That's why it's very important to know the meaning and the value of the life of repentance. To always actually seek that I need forgiveness. I don't deserve to be your son. It's different when you think that way. What else? What else? Who thinks something else? Anything? What else? Mina, do you want to bring the slides?
One of the lessons that I think we can take away is understanding that when we desire things so much, so badly, when we want something so badly, we often find ourselves sort of succumbing to our own desires. So I feel like the story helps us kind of learn not to ever want something so badly that you're willing to risk a lot, especially when you don't have the blessing or the guidance of somebody you trust, like your father, for example, right? So usually that doesn't really end up in a good place. So I don't know maybe what is the better way to word that, but just kind of staying alert to where our desires take us. And sometimes when we think of something, we want it really badly, whether it be a relationship or education or a position or money or whatever it is that we might want badly. That thing might not be bad in and of itself. Like the fact that he wanted his
Inheritance.
he wanted part of his inheritance, which is his right, but not in the right time, can cause substantial damage. And so when we want something so badly, I feel like we get blindsided.
That's
We
true.
get very narrow-minded, and we don't think of anything else, and that causes damage in the long run.
I will add to that actually the concept of now. You know, a lot of times actually when I listen stories about the prodigal son story, it's amazing how he came to himself and said, now I will go back to my father. But there's another now actually I want you to pay attention to. And that is now in the beginning, which we all sometimes fall for, which is if he waited, he will get his inheritance, but he also will enjoy the company of his father. Yet, he chose to actually take his inheritance now, and he lost the joy of being with his father. And a lot of times, we all think that way. Like, how many times I would actually have a young man come my way, and I ask him, like, how is school going? I dropped out. Why? Oh, I needed money now. Right? If he waited and did what he needs to do to actually study and get a degree or find a career or something, he will make a lot more money than what he is making now. And he will be making more money in the future that equates to a lot of more money that he actually will be saving from now until he is the same age. Do you understand what I'm saying? And build on that so many other things. I want that now. I want a car now. I want to marry now. I want to be in love now. I want this now. That's his problem. He wanted what's his, but he wanted now. And now might not be the right time. So keep that in mind. And always think about that. Now, is really now the right time to do this, or should I wait? Now, I need to be, I need to start exercising and build weight and build muscles. So now let me go ahead and start lifting weights. 500 pounds. Now, you can't break yourself. So be careful with that now part. What else? I forgot your name. Nardine.
Yeah. So I want to apologize in advance. I lost my voice kind of earlier this week, so it's not that strong. But I had like a little bit of a different interpretation on the story from a point that you made. So you said that he didn't love his father and his brother, right? Sorry. So my interpretation, so I don't know if like we've all had like the same experience, but like at least like with Sunday school kids or like when we were like a kid and we were in our classes and like they were like, oh, if you behave, you're gonna like get candy, you're gonna get a treat, right? And so there were like the kids that behaved and then there were the kids that didn't. And so like, let's just say like the kids that didn't, they were like apologetic at the end, and in the end all the kids ended up getting the candy, right? So I don't think if like the kids that did behave, if they start complaining, if they're like if they're upset that the other kids also got the same prize for like even though they weren't well behaved the whole time, I don't think it's because they didn't love the other kids. I think it's more like because they realized, oh, I could have slacked off and came back and still got the prize. So rather than it being about him not loving his father and his brother, I think it implies that yes, he behaved, yes, he stayed, but it wasn't because he genuinely wanted to. It was more because he had to. Like it was a rule and he just stuck to the rule, but his heart wasn't in his actions. So that's what it is to me.
Man, Nardine, you're bringing up a very good point here, which is I deserve. Jesus actually, he himself told a story similar to what you told about the Sunday school kids here. Does anyone remember that story, or is that parable as well? Sure, go ahead. Yeah, you remember. Say anything you remember from.
I don't remember what the first hour was, but he basically goes off early in the morning, asks the workers, like, hey, come work for me in the field, and I'll give you a denarii. Later on, other workers tell him, like, hey, we didn't find any jobs. Can we work for you? He tells them, yeah, I'll give you a denarii. 1 hour before finish time, others come. And they're like, hey, we want to get some work. And he was like, yeah, go ahead. He gives every single one of them a denarii.
Which seems unfair.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I work for 10 hours and you give me a denarii, and he worked for 1 hour and you give him a denarii. That doesn't...
Communism, yeah.
Yes, that's actually not fair. And what the father said is it your money or yours? I give it the way I want. And this is how I felt it's worth, because I know every one of you and his need and her need. Now, can you go to verse 29? That's what you think. Because we think by the common givens, like you work 1 hour, you get $15 an hour, so I work 10 hours, that means I get $150. But in his eyes, it's different. Because one, he knows what you need, your needs. He knows, again, it's not about what you deserve. Because yes, if it's about what you deserve, none of us will get anything. None of us will get anything. You get it? Again, we think, like what he was saying here, verse 29. So he answered and said to his father, lo, these many years I have been serving you. I never transgressed your commandment. Transgressed your commandment. Like, at any time. Who can say that? I never disobeyed you. I never did. Can any of us say that to our fathers? No. But that is the problem. He think that he didn't really transgress at all. Did he? Yeah, I'm sure the father can tell him, you know what, if you bring this up, sit down. Let me tell you how many times you did it. You did this, and did this. And you can even bring this one to tell him that, no, you did. So it's not about what you deserve. It's about grace. Can someone tell me, in simple terms, I'm not going to go like on weeks explaining, the difference and similarity between grace and salvation. In simple terms, what is salvation? Salvation is that I do not get what I deserve. What is it that I deserve? Death. Is that what I deserve? Like, that's what you deserve. And because of the salvation that Jesus gave us, we don't die. And what is grace? Grace is that we get what we don't deserve. Because I don't deserve any of what you're giving me. Now, it's very important to know that I am receiving that by grace. I'm actually receiving your salvation by your grace. The older son, and going back to actually point towards the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees, they think they deserve. That's what he's saying here. I served you all these years, and I never transgressed. So again, it goes back to, did he love the Father? From what's written here, doesn't seem like. It seems like he thinks that he deserves. He thinks that the Father owes him what he's giving him. It's my right. Do I have any right for inheritance? If my father told me, no, you don't really have anything, it's his money. I don't really have anything in it. It's his. He wants to give it to me, he can. He doesn't want to give it to me, he can. Like, if my father has like $100 in the bank, $100, very rich, and he decided to just go spend all that money. Now I go back and ask him about, where's my inheritance? What's left is like $2 here. That's yours. Will I go crazy about it? No, because he spent his money. I have no right for that, to ask about this money. And that's what he's asking for. He's asking for something that's not his.
Worked in his father's field. At least that work is assumed to be recompensed back within the inheritance. If you're not going to give me an inheritance, then give me the freedom to go work somewhere else.
He didn't hold him. He can go anywhere he wants.
Right, but that needs to be communicated. If you're not going to give me an inheritance and then spend my portion of my inheritance on the one that got to spend it with leisure, then I have the, you should have given me that heads up at least.
And that was the language of love that the father used for him, that all what's mine is yours. It doesn't need words to explain it. It's just common sense. So again, I go back and say it. The older son didn't see the picture. He just felt like he's righteous in his own eyes, and he didn't really see the father's love to him and to his brother. Anything else? All right.
Yeah. Is there any other points or?
There are so much, but it's okay.
Yeah, I think one point that I like to take away from this discussion is like it's interesting that the story has like two parallels, right? The young brother, there's like a number of things to learn from the young brother and a number of things to learn from the older brother. And I think that many of us will essentially flip-flop between the young brother and the older brother, depending on the time and season of our lives, right? There are times that we might feel very, very far from the church, physically. You know, you're not here, you're not attending, you're not praying, you're not connecting, you're not even enjoying anything that God has to give. And sometimes you might be here and you might feel like you're benefiting through some things or whatever, but because of the sinful, weak nature of us, we might look at people like in this eye, you know, and maybe it doesn't have to be said. Maybe the older brother said it. He was so like verbal about it. Maybe we don't have to be verbal. Maybe it's communicated in our thoughts. Maybe it's communicated in our interactions. Maybe it's communicated in a sense of like, we know better, you know, this idea. And even Jesus talks about this, not just in parables, but in direct teachings through St. Paul, saying, let not many of you be teachers, because teachers will be judged stricter, knowing that you have more knowledge in certain things, and those who are teaching are committing sins despite their knowledge. It's even a higher measure to be... Finally, St. Paul also tells us that, you know, forgive others and do unto others so that God may do in the same measure to you as others. So, like, there's always this constant, like, duty that we have to God and to those who are around us. And so God really teaches us this idea of caring for one another, because that's what he did to us. So he models that on the cross. When he cared for us, he's saying, follow my lead, follow my example as I do unto others. And also, I think one of the biggest things is that the heroic thing that the little brother did was that he admitted a mistake. And this is a very difficult pill to swallow for a lot of us, that it's so hard for us to admit a mistake, but really knowing that the admittance of a mistake gives birth to like new chapters, right? Like this guy's chapter switched, right? Like the page was flipped upside down because he admitted that he was at fault. And so, you know, don't just kind of categorize yourself, big brother, little brother kind of situation. We're talking about it because it's very clear that Jesus was talking to the tax collectors and the Pharisees about something that he needed to nudge them with. Like he needed to shove that to them essentially and let them know it's not about you. There's other people that also matter. And those are the sinners, those are the Gentiles, we are here to gather the sheep all under one kingdom. And so there was a message behind the prodigal son, more than just the son himself, right? More than just the son made a mistake, went out, and then he came back. There's a bigger message here that this older brother identify with him, right? And so the Bible always tries to pull us into the characters of the stories, whether they're real stories or whether they're parables. And parables are essentially Jesus' stories, said stories. You guys know this is not a real story, right? This is a parable. But he says this parable for us to learn something. And just not us, but at the time, in reality, what was happening. So remember that the lowest points of our lives, which is eating with the swines, or even wishing, right? We learned today that he didn't eat with the swines. He was wishing to eat with the swines, right? He was wishing to eat out of these pods, right? He couldn't even find them. That those low points in our lives give birth to higher points. There was a robe that was put on him. There was a party that was thrown. There was a calf that was fed to eat to everybody. And so always remember that these difficult times, these tough times, even if these tough times are not just product of the environment, because that happens, right? There are times where my parents moved from Egypt and culturally we're having a hard time, or there's hardship, high credit card debts or something, or I didn't get admitted into the school or whatever, or this relationship didn't go as planned or whatever. There's these circumstantial things, and then there's problems that I caused. I have I drank, drove, and I got in a car accident and I killed somebody. That's a mistake I made, right? And so, or that's a very big example, but I say that because I see patients at the prison all day, every day, and so I hear about these stories. The point is, I think, like I said in with this, is that he admitted where he went wrong, and that was life-changing for him. So thank you so much, Dr. Grigis. We really, really appreciate you. He was contacted at 4:45 as he walked out, and today he's here. So we are so indebted to you. Thank you so much. And we're going to skip the burning question today because we have a announcement from Tony. So, Tony.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? I won't take up too much of your time. Just a quick announcement. I just wanted to share. I'm here on official business from His Grace Bishop Krolos. So I have to share an event that Acts is hosting. I'm sure. Does everyone know about Acts Theological School in our diocese? Okay, good. So how do I work this air thing? How do I make it show on the screen? AirDrop or Air Play, or how do you? Can you help me? To you? Oh, wonderful. Okay, good. All right, so it's really tiny. All right, you don't have to look at the people. It's not important. So this is a concert that we're hosting. It's part of the New Acts Department of Hymnology. It's a concert that we're going to be hosting on March 26th, which is not this coming Sunday, it's the following Sunday. In Embassy Suites in Garden Grove, sort of Anaheimish, next to Disneyland. So this is a fundraiser, so the tickets are $75. However, we just got approval from His Grace yesterday morning for a discount for students. Everybody here is a student, I assume, right? Or we'll just call you students because you're young. So I have a promo code. If anybody is interested in going to this concert, I have a promo code, so you don't have to pay the $75. Just see me, and I will give it to you. And it gives you $35 off, so your ticket ends up being $40 bucks, not $75. Okay, and all the proceeds from this concert are going to the establishment of the new hymns department. This isn't just going to be hymns as well. So some of our deacons are participating. There's deacons from around the diocese are also participating, and some girls from the ecclesiastical choir here in this parish and in other churches around the diocese are gonna sing some hymns as well. And then in between the hymns, or in between each portion of the hymns, there's going to be like an explanation, an insight to the history and the meaning of the hymns, the background as to why they're chanted in that way and why they are put in the church per season, from Father Arsenios Mikhail. He's the head of the Acts Department of Liturgical Studies, and so he's going to be providing that insight for us in between the hymns. So it's going to be some hymns and then a large educational portion as well. So this is I basically said all that. So this hymns department is an extension of the official hymns institute called St. Didymus Institute for Cantors in Egypt. And they are we are going to have with us 3 new graduates from that institute, Ma'alimin. So we have Ma'alim George and Ma'alim Mina, and I think Ma'alim Joe. And these guys are going to be sort of the head of this concert. But if you are interested in going, it is not next Sunday, it's the following Sunday, March 26th at 6:30 p.m. Till about 8:30. So come see me. I have a promo code for you. I also have the link. If anyone wants the link to share with your family and friends, we're trying to get as many people as we can for this concert because, like I said, it's a fundraiser. So let me know if you're interested. I'll be standing outside for a while, and I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Let's go ahead and stand up for prayer, guys.